This is the how to hire session. I hope that's where you intend to be, because that's what we're going to do. I'm Roger Carswell. I'm the director of the Southeast Kansas Library System. Also on the panel, I have Jeri Ludlam, who is the director of the Independence Public Library. We have Clarkson, who is director of the Pittsburg Public Library, and Connie Mitchell, who is director of the Eureka Public Library. Our format is going to be this. Actually, I should say before we get started, if you didn't get your badge scanned as you came in, please do that. Otherwise, it won't record that you were here. This is primarily for library staff, but if you want to make sure that you get credit for this session, make sure your badge is scanned. So our format is going to be, I have 9 different questions on some aspect of the hiring process that I'm going to pose to our panel. I'm going to let one person at a time respond to it. One person will respond to it, and then the other people on the panel will also have the chance to chime in and give additional thoughts if they want to. They're not required to. Hopefully we will have a little bit of time left at the end for questions that you may have too, so you may be thinking about those. Our first question is, what kind of recruitment or advertising works well for you? And Connie is going to be our responder.
We are still doing traditional ways of advertising, which would be the newspaper. We do advertise on Facebook. And one of the things that we have in our community, we have a local group that runs a foundation and does other things to promote the community. They have a website called Eureka Has Jobs. And what we're finding out is not only at the library, but in other situations in town, this is the most heavily used way to find out about jobs in our community. And we can post there for free. We can have a cutoff date. It's really been a great way to get the word out. Word of mouth works for us. We have encouraged some people to apply that we know have been looking for jobs. But I think particularly that website, on our application forms, we have a box that says, how did you find out about this job? And overwhelmingly, that is what is coming back to us. And I'm amazed at the amount of jobs that are actually on that for our community. And one of the nice things is it also shows you how long that job has been posted, so you know if it's current or not.
Hi, we also use our city website a lot, and since we're in a university town, we use Gorillas for Hire because we do hire a lot of university students. We really don't use Facebook that much, generally because for each position we get 30 or 40 applicants at a time, so I think if we use Facebook it would be even more. So we have considered it, but we just haven't done it yet. And also if I was going to hire for a full-time position, I would probably cast a wider net and use professional resources and do it on more of a statewide basis, so listservs, maybe even a headhunter.
Well, one of the things that we've been encountering is that when we have people apply, there's nobody that has actual library experience. So we started an internship program, and you could do this with volunteers too. So our internships program starts with 3 volunteers who work through the summer, and then we choose an intern from that. And we're hoping to build up a pool of people who have library experience so that when we go to hire, we will already have known them and they already have some experience. So maybe you could start with some of your volunteers.
One good thing that we have going for us today that we didn't have, say, 20 years ago is the availability of lots of free places to advertise. And particularly if you are looking for a position that's a full-time position. Some of you may be board members and might be advertising for a director sometime. So if you're looking on your community in particular, here are some of the resources that we have. There's the CanLi Bill listserv. Most public and college librarians, at least I think in the state, belong to that. And so and you're free to advertise a job on there. So that's a good free place. If you have someone who is subscribed to that and can put your ad on for you. I should say we at the system have occasionally done that on behalf of libraries when no one who was left there was a subscriber. The library school in Emporia State, if you're looking for someone with an MLS, and very few of you will be, but if you are at some point, that's a good advertising source. The only other thing is probably something that's not going to pertain to most of you, but I'll mention it anyway because we have used it when advertising for our professional positions of the system, and that's some national paid advertising. I should have refreshed my memory on what the main two are, but one is Library Journal Job List, and the other one kind of escapes me now, but it's connected with American Library Association. But those are kind of expensive, and I wouldn't probably do it in most of your cases. The second question that we're posing is, do you have any favorite questions to ask when interviewing someone? And I'm going to be the first to respond to that. I'm going to tell you about one that I read about not long ago that I just absolutely love, but haven't actually had a chance to use yet. And I don't think this would be one that I'd be using for a typical clerk shower or page position, but more a full-time position, and particularly a professional position. And this wasn't a library-related one. This came from a newsletter that was about HR issues in general. But it says they like to ask of the applicant, if you could ask me just one question about the job, or they say company, but we'd say library, what would it be? And it doesn't matter what they answer, follow it up immediately with, wow, what an interesting question. What made you ask that one above all? Because by responding to that second question, you get some insight into the person's motivation that you might not have otherwise. It really doesn't matter what the answer to the first question is, but the answer to the second question is your real goal. One that I have used a lot, and again, it's one I picked up reading somewhere in some personnel management article or something or other. I see these a lot. I like a lot of the questions, but you only usually want to ask a pretty limited number. But one that I've used quite a bit, and it does work for any position, is looking back at either your past jobs or your school or community activities you've been involved in. What's the one thing that you're most proud of, and tell me about that. And I think the goal here for everything is to kind of get an idea of the person. You can tell what their job history is and if it's relevant and what their skills is, but sometimes it's not just the skills. You're looking at the whole person, what their work habits are, what their attitudes are towards work, if they're a creative person, if they generate ideas, if they're negative, all those sorts of things play into more than their actual experience, although the experience that's required for any particular job is the baseline. I'm going to say one other thing, which the same article that I got the first question I told you about said not to do, but I do it and I like it. And I always start with, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Because that kind of opens it up. Their point was that lets the applicant take control of the interview. You lose control. Well, you don't really. If you get a domineering person, you're not going to hire them anywhere else anyway. So, but I like that because it gives them a free range to talk about whatever they want. And since you're really after getting a feel for the person and what they're really like and how they're going to work at the job, it can be a lot more useful than almost any other specific question you ask, I think.
So my favorite question is, how do you feel about cats? Because we have a cat, and that really opens up the conversation, and they start laughing, and then we talk, and that really helps. But we went through our staff and did what we call the commitments. It's about we as a staff are looking at what kind of a person we want to be hired for our library, and some of the things they came up with, they wanted somebody who was collaborative, they wanted somebody who was flexible, they wanted somebody who was uplifting, So I just went online and looked for questions that helped me with flexibility. But a really practical question I usually ask is, if you're at the front desk and the phone is ringing and you have a patron and I'm standing there talking to you, what do you do? Well, obviously the wrong answer is to say, continue to talk to you. The right answer is to help the patron in front of you and then answer the phone and then continue to talk to me. And surprisingly, a lot of people get that wrong. But you also are looking for somebody who responds quickly, that is able to prioritize quickly and on the spot. So that's what I ask.
One of our favorite questions is, describe yourself using 3 adjectives. And that way you can find out if they know what an adjective is. But it also, a few haven't, and it also gives you some insight into how they see themselves, which is kind of interesting, you know. So, and another one, I asked some other staff members what their favorite question would be, and Andy, who's assistant director, said, I would ask, what's your favorite font? And she said, I can tell anything about that person if they know what, do they know what a font is? Do they think a font is important? Do they describe themselves as Times New Roman? Are you a Comic Sans? Or if they say it doesn't matter? So she said, that's what I would ask. And a general question also that we ask is, why would you like to work at the Pittsburgh Public Library? You know, just, but you can see the response. So those are some of the things we do.
I like the question that Roger talked about. Tell me a little bit about yourself, simply for the fact not everybody interviews well, and you're wanting to do the best for your library. So if you can put that person a little bit at ease and take the edge off, I think that helps. This is not a question that I have used before, but I recently saw on a library listserv that I think I will start using. Many of us have asked, if you saw another staff member doing something illegal or inappropriate, would you report it? This person actually asks their applicants, if you saw me as the library director doing something wrong or inappropriate, what would you do? Which is a whole different dynamic. Would they have the strength to be able to stand up and make sure that that was taken care of? So that is something I think I'll start asking. We also ask many of the standard questions. Tell us something that you think you did that was a success in another job. Tell us about something that you think didn't go so well. I mean, we all have projects that are really, really good. We have things that maybe don't go as planned. So how they deal with failure as much as success is really, really good. You can tell a lot if they talk about team effort and giving credit to other people who worked with them on that.
Our next question is, what do you look for in a new hire? And Bev will be the first responder.
Okay. Well, I read an article recently and it really struck me, and it really kind of boils things down of what you're looking for. And it's just a couple of questions. So this is it, and this is what I'm going to ask from now on. It's one, do you like people? Because when you're in a library situation, you have to like people. And two, do you like to solve problems? And I think that kind of boils down, no matter what department you're working in the library, you know, those two things are applicable. So those I'm going to ask, but there's a lot of things that we look for in a new hire, because there's this misconception that, oh, I like to read, so I'd be perfect to work in a library, and we try to dispel that as quickly as possible. Obviously, you know, there's educational and experience in certain jobs, but what I also look at, customer service is king. You know, can you give good customer service? A good attitude, you know, that'll go a long way. Enthusiasm. You come to the job looking forward to it. A self-starter. How do you deal with change? Because there's a lot of people who don't like change, and libraries change a lot. Someone who can deal with that. Energy suckers. You know, if you come and you're not prepared to work well with others, that's going to be bring the whole library down. Obviously, you need computer skills, soft skills. Can you get to work on time? You know, I look for that. Sometimes you just have a gut instinct about people. I look for somebody who's non-judgmental. So those are just a few of the things we look for.
Certainly, we look for people who enjoy working with other people, who have the good customer service. I want someone who's inquisitive, and that goes with the problem solving. Something else that's extremely important in our situation is flexibility, because we will set up our schedule for the month, and within a day we already know it's going to change. And so, because I have part-time staff, it's really important for us to be able to move things around. Someone who is a self-starter, someone who's a detailed person, that kind of looks beyond the obvious and sees other things that might need to be done. I always tell them I'm not particularly concerned with the job being done in a really quick manner, but that it's done accurately so we don't have to go back and correct mistakes. So I think those are the things that are most important to me.
The things that are important to me are different with each hire. So when we have a person leave, we look around to see what gaps we have. And gaps can be a skill set, for instance, a graphic designer. It can be a personality type. Like, for instance, next year we're going to have the center of our world retire. So I'm going to be looking for somebody that is empathetic and emotional and capable of being the person that other people go to talk to them, who will listen. Or I look for characteristics like one time when we were hiring, we realized that all of our staff was over the age of 30, and we had no younger people to help us represent and market and get programs that they would like. So we specifically targeted a younger demographic for that hire. So you have to look for gaps, and I would be leery of trusting that connection feeling that you have with people, because oftentimes that means that they're a lot like you. And you want to fill gaps. You don't want everybody on your staff to be the same, or it may gives you tunnel vision. So that's what I would do.
Okay, I'm not going to answer this one because I think it's been pretty well answered, and the things that I might add to it, I think I really got into in the last question. But